Welcome to episode 71.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
Ready to take a vacay, but you just don't have the time to plan? Let the agents at 3D Travel Company pamper you and take care of all the little details. Find us at www.whodidthatvoice.co and click the Book Now button on the left-hand side. For a limited time, Who Did That Voice listeners can receive a Disney gift card for qualifying Disney and Universal trips, booked and traveled by 2017. Hurry and book today so you can travel away.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hey you guys, this is a special shout out to all my listeners around the world. Who Did That Voice is now heard in over 78 different countries, and I can't thank you guys enough. Here in the USA and abroad, thank you for listening to Who Did That Voice. Keep listening and sharing with your friends. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today's special guest is my good friend and fellow podcaster, Tim Nydell from the Saturday Morning Rewind podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice? Today on the show we have Tim Nydell joining us from the Saturday Morning Rewind podcast. Tim, thanks so much for coming on the show today, man.
Yeah, man, this is exciting. I'm a fan of your podcast, and you've had a lot of amazing guests. Some of them I had on my podcast, but I'm honored to be included with them.
Absolutely, brother. Well, you've had a lot of amazing guests too since you've been doing your show now for going on or right at 5 years. Woohoo!
I know it started happening almost exactly 5 years ago.
Dude, that is insane, brother. Well, we will definitely dive into that here in a moment. But, you know, the very first thing we like to do on our show, as you know, is get to know our guest just a little bit, our special guest. And, you know, Tim, tell us about you growing up, you know, the little boy into the man you are today. How did you get where you are in life and in podcasting?
Wow. That's such a deep question. Wow. Well, I can't say I was born in Reno, but I was raised in Reno, Nevada. And honestly, if it wasn't for that city, I wouldn't be who I am today. I don't know what it was about Reno, but I had such an amazing childhood there and so many amazing memories of myself and my brother watching cartoons, playing video games, and just going outside and playing. That's where I came from, was Reno. And I thank Reno for what I've become today.
Absolutely. It had to be Reno 911, right?
Yeah, I guess. Actually, it's Sparks. That was where I lived, but people don't know what Sparks is, so I always say Reno.
I know how that is. Well, you know, when it comes to podcasting, you know, tell us a little bit about your show, but before you do that, how did you find out how to even be a podcaster? How did you get started and find the equipment and all that kind of stuff to get going?
Wow, that's even a deeper question. I would just start off by talking about Saturday Morning Rewind, but in order to really answer that question, I need to go back, honestly, 17 years ago to when I first kind of started doing this, which is insane. I'm so old. But 17 years ago, okay, I was really huge on rock events, like rock concerts and rock music and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And let's see, I was 20 years old, and one of my favorite bands was coming to town. And I went to go buy tickets, and it was 100% sold out. So I went on eBay hoping, you know, somebody was scalping tickets, which is illegal to do, so don't do it, people. But hoping there was some tickets on there, and there wasn't. But there was this one guy selling. I wish I could find out who it was, because it'd be kind of cool to reach out to him. But this one seller was selling this book, and the title of the eBay auction said the concert I wanted to go to is like, get free tickets to this concert. And I went into it, was like, okay, how can I get free tickets? And I bought the item. The item was a little small book that he just wrote on a typewriter and printed it off and shipped it off. And it was how to create content either online or in a magazine or newspaper to get free concert tickets. And I didn't do anything with it for a while because it was already too late to go to my concert I wanted to go to. it was already expired, already passed.
Yeah.
But I set the book aside, and probably about 6 months later, I actually read it. And it told you to create either a website or a newspaper or something and interview these people. And in return, they can give you concert tickets to their show, which they end up doing for me when I created my very first website, which was called Rock Bottom. And so that happened, and I didn't get my first interview. I want to say it took another like 6 months after starting. It's because back then, it's different now. People know what a podcast is now.
Yeah.
So it's not as hard to create a new show. But imagine 17 years ago when, I mean, if you think about it, the internet was still kind of new, even in 2000.
Yeah,
honestly.
very much. Yeah.
And so here I am, this brand new website. People had no idea who I was. And I finally get my first ever interview. The band was called Old 97s. It's actually kind of a semi-popular underground rock group. But the cool thing was they were opening for Matchbox 20.
Oh, wow.
My very first interview, I was backstage at the Matchbox 20 and Train concerts. Train was there as well. And I was sitting in the break room with all the bands. Like, I was sitting next to like the guitar player from Matchbox 20 eating some chicken. We were just having dinner together. It's so amazing and so weird at the same time. And then one guy comes up and introduces himself to me, and it's the lead singer of Train. He's like, "Yeah, I know who you are, man." And
that's crazy.
That was my first experience with this kind of a thing, was through my old website, Rock Bottom.
And why the name Rock Bottom?
It came because I mainly wanted to interview rock bands, and I wanted to get to the bottom of things. You know what I mean? So I put it at Rock Bottom.
I like it. Well, and through the course of Rock Bottom, it spawned the show that you have today called
Saturday Morning Rewind. Yes, it did. Because through Rock Bottom, I started a podcast where I would interview celebrities, because I branched out of just doing musicians. I also did actors like Gary Sinise and Dolph Lundgren and Crispin Glover and that kind of stuff. And I was doing a podcast with all that. And I started interviewing voice actors for Rock Bottom as well. And I sat there during those interviews, like, those guys are a lot friendlier than most of the celebrities I've talked to. I need to create a show with just that.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets a little, not dark, but a little sadder. My dad passed away 5 years ago.
Oh, no.
And when he did, I was kind of in shock. He was young. He wasn't even 60 yet. And I started going back to my childhood, thinking a lot about my childhood and watching a lot of my favorite cartoons. And in that process, I was like, yeah, I need to create that show and interview these people. And I did that. And the cool thing was, like, the first year of doing it was almost like therapy for me, because I was talking to my childhood heroes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just so therapeutic. And that's how Saturday Morning Rewind came to be.
Well, that is fascinating, Tim. I'm sad to hear about your dad's passing, but that his, life and everything through his passing kind of gave you, birth of this podcast because of the passions that you grew up with and shared with your dad. And, it's sad to hear about his passing, but it's unique to see that it helped spawn what you have today, because it has grown a lot over the last 5 years and you've had a lot of guests. And, as far as the frequency of your show goes, how often can people hear your show and when do you typically release and those kind of things?
Right now, we just started doing one episode a week. So every Monday, a brand new episode is going to be hitting.
Awesome. And I believe you do some different formats. You don't just do interviews. You have some different kind of shows as well.
Yeah, the first episode of the month is going to be my usual interview episode, where I interview either, I almost said musicians. I'm so used to Rock Bottom. Where I interview, voice actors and people associated with, mainly, I've actually branched out a little bit to interview more people associated with, things from the 80s and 70s, that kind of stuff. So it's not always voice actors, and then the second episode of the month is myself and my co-host Gary, where we just sit and talk about certain topics like cartoons, cartoon characters. We can even talk about mascots and cereals, a lot of things associated with growing up in the 80s and 90s. And then the third episode each month is going to be another interview. And the fourth is a brand new show I just started doing called Video Game Rewind, where same thing with Saturday Morning Rewind, we just talk about retro video games.
Very cool, man. Very cool. I know retro video games are a huge thing for me. For Christmas, my sister actually bought me a Retreon system so it can play
Yes.
Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got one of those too. It's amazing.
They are, dude. And I don't know if you've seen them, but they have like a Retreon 9 or something, and it plays like Game Boy games and all kinds of like different little diskette games and stuff from back in the day, too. So it's all on one console. It plays like 9 different games. I'm like, why didn't I know about that one?
Seriously, that's amazing. I didn't know they had that.
I know it's a Retreon system, but it's a different one. So I've got the blue one with 3. But anyway, well, some of you may be asking, why is Tim Nydell on Who Did That Voice? He's not a voice actor and he's not really in the voiceover industry, but he is very involved with the voiceover industry as he interviews a lot of people who did voiceover, especially in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and some today as well. And Tim and I kind of became friends through my younger brother, Preston, who had a friend that had kind of reached out to Tim and got us connected. And Tim kind of gave me some advice and stuff in the beginning of Who Did That Voice and how to get my website going. And so, Tim, I say thank you to you because, you kind of helped kickstart my show when I was struggling with certain things. I would hit Tim up to ask advice and figure out what I needed to do. So Tim was a big part of helping get my show off the ground. So thank you, Tim. I really appreciate that, brother.
Of course, it's like raising a child. I'm watching it grow up now.
Well, we've become good friends over the course of our time since we've been introduced, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I hope people really get a chance to get to know you and get to know your show too, because like you mentioned before, I've had several of the guests you've had, but I've also had a lot of different ones, and I have a lot of different ones coming up as well, so as I know you have a lot of new ones coming up that I don't have either, so it's great, because between our two shows, we have a lot of different actors, a lot of different interviews, and a lot of times the shows, the way Tim does his show versus the way I do my show, you're going to hear interviews that are the same actors, but they are entirely different shows. So that is one great thing about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Tim, what is the difference that you would say between when you started podcasting, let's just say 5 years ago with Saturday Morning Rewind, as opposed to today? How much has the industry really changed when it comes to podcasting equipment and just how the whole shebang works?
Well, to start off with, you would think it'd be getting easier, but it's kind of not because a ton of celebrities are out there now with a brand new podcast. And honestly, it doesn't aggravate me, but it's a little annoying how easily their show can be so popular so right off the bat because they're a known name.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of them are great shows, but some of them aren't. Just because they're a known name, they get a ton of downloads. So one aspect is I think it's starting to get harder to get new listeners.
Well, I think that aspect is true, that it can be hard to get new listeners. But like the longevity of the show that you've had for 5 years, I'm sure you've pulled a great fan base,
Yeah, oh no, they're amazing. I love them to death, and become friends with multiple on Facebook. So hit me up if you just want to befriend me on Facebook. I'm cool with that. I've got plenty of podcast listeners that have befriended me, and they're amazing.
Absolutely. And the same goes for me. I've met so many wonderful people through doing this, not just in the voiceover industry, but those who love the show or love the actors that are on the show. And it's so amazing to just see how people flock to you and talk to you. And I always make time for people. And I know Tim does too, because I'm living proof of that. We've become good friends through chit-chatting online.
It is a little weird though. I remember the very first time I was recognized for just out of the blue. I was at a Denny's and some guy recognized me. I was in Anaheim, so of course they're probably Disney fans if they're in Anaheim. And
Yeah.
he said, yeah, I listened to your Jim Cummings interview. I was like, that's really cool, but a little awkward.
The first time you were noticed as a public figure. Whoa.
I know it's exciting, and that might actually start happening more often because I just started doing a brand new YouTube show as well, where my friend Christian and I get together on video, and we open up. It's like unboxing videos, really, but it's really high quality unboxing videos because he actually has a studio with high def cameras and lighting and everything like that, and microphones. And what we're doing is we're unboxing a ton of like 80s and 90s toys.
Fantastic. That is awesome. And how frequently is that YouTube show going to be coming out for people to see, Tim?
That should be every other week. It
Okay.
should be. But he's also in charge of editing because he's a filmmaker, so he edits, and I don't want to pressure him too much. So if it happens to be every 3 weeks, that's fine. Just subscribe; it'll show up. I promise you. We've already recorded, as of right now, we've recorded 3 episodes already. One's already been out, which is the Muppet Baby one, where we unbox the Muppet Baby kids meals from McDonald's from the early '80s,
Wow.
and it's a fun show to do. I mean, it's so cool to open up a toy, it's sealed, brand new, and I do this weird thing where I like to smell it for some reason because all the 80s air is hitting my nostrils.
That's funny. You're like, it's a time machine.
Now, something that we're gonna be doing pretty soon is we're gonna be eating cereal from the 80s. So I'm a little nervous, but excited.
That
So,
could be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles moment.
mhm. So
Mutation.
it's gonna be fun. I'm expecting to not do much the next day just in case I get a little bit sick.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Tim, one of the things I like to ask my special guests, especially since we are both Disney lovers and avid cartoon lovers, what is your favorite cartoon character or favorite cartoon, or do you have multiples?
Let's see. It's pretty easy to pick up my favorite cartoon of all time. Actually, it's not. It's tied for number one, and they're both so different. So you'll see why they're tied. My number one choice is Thundercats.
Okay.
That's because it's probably the first cartoon I ever remember watching ever. Period. I was 4 years old when it came out,
Wow.
and I remember sitting there, and I used to even make my own little sword of omens out of Lincoln logs.
That's funny.
So that's the first cartoon I ever remember watching. I still love it. And the funny thing is, I mean, it's not funny, but it's amazingly cool. I think Larry Kenney, the voice of Lionel from the 80s version, he does my intro for my podcast.
Yeah, that is so awesome.
So to have my favorite cartoon character introducing every single episode since episode one has just been a blessing. And I thank you, Larry, so much for that. I get goosebumps still listening to it.
That's awesome. And you mentioned another cartoon that was kind of
Yeah.
tied for first there.
My other one would be DuckTales.
Oh yeah, man. Those are both so complete opposites, but they're
Yes.
so good.
Yeah, DuckTales, I remember I think it was in third grade when it came out. And I just remember, like, we had crowds of friends just talking about last night's episode, at school the next morning. It had a huge impact on my life. And that's kind of when I started recognizing voice actors as well, was through DuckTales.
Really? Okay. So that was kind of when you first started noticing it around 4 or 5, huh?
Yeah, and that's kind of funny story, too. Around that same time, I used to carry around a handheld recorder. And I used to record my TV when cartoons came on. And I would go back in my bedroom. I had a dual cassette player so you can record off of another cassette,
Wow, dual cassette.
And, yeah. And I used to record myself asking questions and then play back audio of a cartoon character of them answering my questions. So pretty much I'm doing exactly what I did as a kid right now, but really doing it.
Well, that's funny. So you actually you've had a vision for this a long, long time ago.
And I wish I can find those tapes, but I cannot find them anywhere.
Oh, that's too bad. It's like Bob Bergen when he has his old school tapes talking with Mel Blanc.
Yep, exactly.
That was
And
awesome.
I have, let's see, I pretend interviewed Rob Paulson when I was a kid, and Charlie Adler as a kid, and Joe Alasky, and all three of those I've interviewed now. So it's kind of a full circle of my childhood right there.
Wow, that is awesome. Well, speaking of favorite cartoons, I don't know, man, it's so hard to pick. But we'll get back to that in a second. But when you mentioned being 4 years old, that's funny because my experience with my dad was around 4 or 5 when he did the voice of Marvin the Martian. And that's really when the light bulbs kind of started going on like, hey, there's people do this. If my dad can do it, then, so it's funny that you were about the same age because I feel like in a lot of ways we've had a lot of similarities in our lives. Even though you're a couple of years older than me, we have a lot of similarities between us. But, when it comes to having somebody from your past that was really important to you doing, your intro for the show from episode 1, it was really cool because I had Mike Greco, the voice of the Green Lantern, Michael Greco. He was Green Lantern on Superman, the animated series, and he's actually been the voice of my intro and outro for the end of the show since episode 1. And that was really cool because Superman, the animated series was amazing. But going back to my favorite shows, Batman, the animated series, Superman, I mean, there was the Spider-Man from the 90s. And some of these were not when I was the youngest age possible, but there's just been so many amazing cartoons. It's really hard to name my favorite.
Yeah, there's so many good ones out there. I actually made a YouTube video of my favorite 80s and 90s videos. So if people want to check that out, go to my YouTube, channel, and it's on there somewhere.
Fantastic. Well, Tim, as we do with this show, we always finish off with one final question, and I'm going to ask that of you today. And I want to know, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? Because you have three amazing daughters and a beautiful wife. And, I know little Madison, your 4-year-old, wants to take, huh?
A little mini me.
Mini me, yeah. She wants to take over the podcast when you decide to retire or whatever. But maybe she'll co-host with you down the road. But for a while,
they're talking about death. They've mentioned it. My kids have said, "When I'm going to start doing it."
Hey man, I said the same things. Hey mom and dad, when you're dead, can I have your car?
There's stuff in my office in where I'm recording right now that they said they want to put their names on, so when I die, they can have it.
Well, that is part of our legacy, passing away and moving on from this earth. But I think what we're talking about is a little bit different. But I know what you mean. Kids kind of look at it very straightforward. They don't beat around the bush, that's for sure. So, but what is the legacy that you want to leave behind for your show and for your family?
If you listen to my show, I try not to do it, but it just happens. I think I mention my kids almost in every episode. And maybe not every episode, but it just seems like I do. But that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want something for my kids to go back and listen to, honestly. And it's cool that they're now when I prepare for an interview coming up, I watch a lot of cartoons of the people I'm going to interview. And it's just so cool to have them sitting in my lap, just enjoying them with me. Like I was getting ready for my Amy Jo Johnson interview in Power Rangers, not too long ago. And my youngest daughter, who's 4, was sitting in my lap and it was over. And she's like, I want to watch more of that. I love that. And so it's just so cool. It's bringing the family together. And honestly, when I do pass, it'd be cool to have the show still out there for them to listen to and relive those memories, as if they're happening today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and something else you have to think about, Tim, is not only are your children going to be able to listen to this when you're gone, as hopefully my children in the future, when I have some, listen to this show and everything, your grandkids and your great grandkids and, ancestors down the road will be able to continue hearing this, which is great because it's a legacy that we are leaving for our families and for people that know us and their families down the road to continue to know us and remember and come back. So I think that's an amazing legacy, and family is huge, man. You can't beat it.
Exactly, because if you think about it, or if I think about it, I don't know much about my Nydell, ancestors.
Yeah.
And so if I saw them on video or a picture, it's like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
So it's just cool to think, like you said, if, 50 years from now, my great, great, great grandchild is listening right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be pretty crazy. So as far as the show, you've kind of talked about your family legacy and the show a little bit, but is there anything else regarding the show, or is that pretty much your legacy right there?
Yeah, it'd be cool. I love gaining, real friends from doing the podcast too. That's been a huge delight. Like I've met up with some of them in person.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna meet up with some other this summer in Anaheim. And I love that, how I actually met my co-host Gary through the show. He was a listener for the first year. He's a big fan of the show, and he left an amazing iTunes review, and I befriended him on Twitter, and we haven't gone a day without talking for the past 3 years.
Wow.
And so that's another thing I love, is just the friends that you make, the family, they become part of your true family.
I would totally say that they become your true extended family. But it's awesome. I've met some amazing people, like you've said, Tim, and I met you the same way in essence. And, some of the friends that I have made have become extended family, and it's wonderful. It really is.
Exactly.
Well, Tim, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure having you on the show today, bud. I'm so glad that I was able to grab you as I know you stay pretty busy like I do. But would you just give us a closeout today as we end this episode of Who Did That Voice?
Of course, yeah. This is Tim Nydell from Saturday Morning Rewind. You can find me online. It's SaturdayMorningRewind.com. Check out my show. I've interviewed people like Rob Paulson, Corey Burton, Nancy Cartwright, Tom Kenny, Jim Cummings, so many great voice actors. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Every single link is on my website. And you have been listening to Trenton Larkin on Who Did That Voice.
Well, I sure hope you enjoyed today's episode with Tim Nydell from Saturday Morning Rewind. And if you did, please find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram by searching Who Did That Voice. I would love to hear from you. A question you might ask yourself is, Where can I listen to Who Did That Voice? That's an excellent question. You can hear us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and our website at www.whodidthatvoice.co. Click the Episodes tab and listen away. Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us this Friday as special guest Daniel Ross returns to the show for his second interview. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, do you ask yourself who did that voice? Well, if you do, go to our website, www.whodidthatvoice.co, and click on the Episodes tab. Choose an actor, pick their name, and see pictures from the different characters they've voiced in their career.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.